We're here in the case of State of Ohio v. Dunn, 13 CR 129. We're here for a continuation of sentencing hearing. Since we were last here, each party submitted additional case law for the court's consideration. Does either side wish to make any additional arguments on the record concerning the additional case law?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Not from the defense, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. After the jury trial, the defendant was convicted of count 1, kidnapping, count 2, kidnapping, count 3, kidnapping, count 5, abduction, count 6, rape, count 7, gross sexual imposition, count 8, gross sexual imposition, count 9, felonious assault. The Ohio Supreme Court has issued a recent decision concerning the doctrine of merger in the case of State v. Ruff, slip opinion number 2015, Ohio 995. In order to determine if there are allied offenses that merge into a single conviction, the court must take into consideration the conduct of the defendant. The court must determine if the offenses are of dissimilar import or significance, or in other words, has each offense caused a separate, identifiable harm, or were the offenses committed separately, or were the offenses committed with separate motivation. If any of these are true, they do not merge. The defense has argued that the offenses should be grouped into 3 different groups. In the first group, the kidnapping counts and the abduction counts should be considered as one group for sentencing. The second group would be the rape count with the gross sexual imposition counts, and the third group would be the felonious assault count. The state contends that there are 5 groups for sentencing. They would group the kidnapping counts together, then separately the abduction count, separately the rape count, separately the 2 gross sexual imposition counts, and the 5th group would be the felonious assault group. The court has to determine if these offenses merge for sentencing purposes. The court finds that the abduction count does not merge with the kidnapping counts under the Ruff test. The defendant's action of taking the victim from her home constituted kidnapping. The defendant's conduct of taking the victim to the cemetery, where he restrained her liberty by threat under circumstances that created a risk of physical harm, is a separate harm. Also, the court finds that the harm of taking her from her home is separate and distinct from the harm that occurred when he restrained her liberty at the cemetery. The court also finds that these acts were committed separately. Kidnapping took place when the defendant took the victim from her home, and the abduction took place when the defendant restrained her liberty at the cemetery. The court finds these acts were committed separately. The court also has to determine whether the gross sexual imposition counts merge with the rape count. Again, applying the Ruff test, the court finds that the gross sexual imposition counts do not merge with the rape count. The court finds there are separate harms suffered by the victim. The child testified the defendant had touched her breasts, and the jury found that was for sexual gratification. The defendant created separate harm when he raped the victim and inserted a body part into the victim's vagina. The defendant also caused the victim serious physical harm when he committed the rape. The serious physical harm element demonstrates the defendant had a separate motivation when he committed the gross sexual imposition counts. Pursuant to Revised Code Section 292911A, the overriding purpose of felony offenses, the felony sentencing laws are to protect the public from future crime and to punish the offender. Sentences must be reasonably calculated to achieve those purposes, at the same time not demean the seriousness of the offender's conduct or its effect on the victim. The court is relying on the 4th District Court of Appeals case in State v. Guyver, 2005, Westlaw 674488. The court finds that under Revised Code Section 291112 that the victim has suffered serious physical harm and psychological harm as a result of the defendant's action. The victim in this case was raped and beaten. the defendant's act caused serious physical harm, namely the tear in her genitals. Additionally, the victim showed signs of having been strangled. The psychological harm was evident at trial when she broke down during her testimony. The victim also described being scared during her interview at the Child Protection Center. The court finds the defendant is likely to reoffend. The defendant was using drugs in the night of the offense. The defendant had used drugs and alcohol on a regular basis. The defendant has not sought any help for his drug use. The defendant has not shown any genuine remorse for these offenses. These factors indicate that he is likely to reoffend. Therefore, the court sentences the defendant as follows. On count 3, kidnapping in violation of Revised Code Section 2905-01A4, with a sexual motivation specification is set forth in Revised Code Section 2941.147. Court sentences you to a term of life imprisonment.
Oh, thank you, God.
I will have no further disruptions. Ma'am, I've told you about this before. You do this again, I will have you removed from the courtroom. I know this is your child. This is a court of law. I expect you to act accordingly. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
If she does this again, I want her removed immediately. This goes for anyone else. Abduction. The court sentences the defendant on count 5 abduction in violation of Revised Code Section 2905.02A3B to 36 months in prison. Rape. The court sentences the defendant on count 6. Rape in violation of Revised Code Section 2907.02A1B with the specification that the victim was under 10 years of age and suffered serious physical harm to a term of life without parole. 4. Gross sexual imposition. The court sentences the defendant on count 7, gross sexual imposition in violation of 290705A4 to a term of 60 months in prison. Felonious assault. The court sentences the defendant on count 9, felonious assault in violation of 2903.11A to a term of 8 years. The court finds the above cited sentences shall be served consecutively. The court finds that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public and to punish the defendant. It's not disproportionate to the seriousness of the defendant's conduct, and the defendant poses a danger to the public. The harm suffered by the defendant, the harm committed by the defendant is so great that a single term does not adequately reflect the seriousness of the defendant's conduct. If you're placed on post-release control under the authority of the Adult Parole Authority, you could be returned to prison for up to 9 months for each violation of rules. Your state prison term equals or exceeds 18 months. You could be returned to prison for up to 50% of your prison sentence for all violations committed. Convicted of a new felony and while in post-release control, in addition to being punished for the new offense, the court could add an additional consecutive prison term of 1 year or whatever time remains in your post-release control term, whichever is greater. Prohibited from owning or possessing firearms. You have a chance to receive credit up to 1 day per month for certain programs offered by the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. The court will disapprove any intensive prison program. The court is going to waive court costs. There is no restitution. The court will not order a fine. The court does not recommend a risk reduction sentence. As a matter of law, you must be classified as, I understand, a Tier 3 sexual offender, and all the registration requirements that go with the Tier 3 apply to you in this case. You have 30 days from today to appeal this court's decision. If you can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed to represent you. The cost of your appeal, including preparation of transcript, would be paid from public funds. Is there anything else from the state?
The jail time credit, Your Honor.
That will have to be calculated. Sir, you're entitled to all the jail time credit allowed under Ohio law. I know it's significant, but we don't have that calculation today. I will see that calculation is put in the sentencing entry. Is there anything else in the state?
No, no.
Is there anything else in the defense?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, then with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.